Monroe County Board of Elections monthly meeting. Today is Thursday, February 6th. To my left is Carolyn Van Weel. I apologize. Van Weel. Vanderweel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Don't worry, everybody gets it.
I apologize twice. And Nicole Brown, who is our county clerk. And I'm Hal Turner. So I would like to ask for an approval of the previous minutes, which were distributed to the election board. Are there any additions or corrections?
I have none.
I have none.
I'll make the motion that we accept the minutes from the last board meeting.
I will second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the minutes are accepted as written.
And as always, thank you, Sharon, for the comprehensive minutes.
Under old business, I would ask our election supervisor, Karen Wheeler, to report on the election equipment purchase status.
That's pretty exciting. We got our big semi truck that pulled in on Monday, and we unloaded it with many helping hands. Oh my gosh, it was quite an quite an experience. We got it all unloaded, and then that was Monday. Filled our election central that night. Our IT team, tested every piece of that equipment. They worked on it till about 11:30 that night. And then Tuesday, we had a few other things dealing with the equipment. And on Wednesday, another semi truck came in, and we loaded up all the old equipment, and that has been sent back to Hart, and it will be destroyed due to its age. And so anything on there that will be cleaned, I mean, it's just totally wiped out. There's no way that it's ever going to be used again. And so it's very secure, and they have a great system of how they do that. So the last, those 3 days of the beginning of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, was very labor intense, throwing a lot of the old stuff. It was kind of fun.
It was.
I mean, all this equipment that we've been taking care of, which is kid gloves, that you can just throw it in the truck or toss it. We didn't care because it's not any good anymore. Versus our brand new equipment, shiny, sparkling, sitting in the places it needs to be right now. We're really excited about getting that. And our training will start next week on Tuesday. Hart will come back again, Drew Stewart, and he'll be training the trainers and those of us that need to know that. And so we're happy to be able to get that opportunity again to see how it's all working. We've seen it before, but now it's really hands-on in learning the process.
So I'm presuming the Secretary of State accepted your plan for disposal.
She did, yes.
And what's the status of e-poll books?
So we also are getting new e-poll books, and that's been approved by the commissioners, and we will be getting our first 20. I believe it's what, the 20th? 19th, February 19th, and we'll have those for training, and then we'll be getting the rest of them shortly after that. So we're on a good schedule for that, and we're very excited about those two. They have some features that we did not have with the other one that will be very helpful, not only to us, but for the voters. I think it's going to be a really good change.
Yeah.
Okay. For the sake of voters, what changes will they see when they go to cast a vote from the previous?
Not very
machines?
much. You're going to see that our e-poll book's going to have a different color, and the movability and how it functions even for the voter will be a positive thing. We had just a few glitches with the stand. It wasn't a good stand before. This stand is really sleek and very easy. It doesn't catch on the, if you ever came in and you had the pen, it would always catch, and it didn't want to turn correctly. This one, the design is just totally different, and so we have none of that. But other than that, they're going to come in, they're going to get registered, check in on the e-poll book, they're going to go to the printer and get their ballot printed, and they're going to vote. So they're really not seeing a lot of difference. It's more behind the scenes of how everything else works for the what we used to call tally. It's going to be counts and just how the process works. And the equipment, of course, is greatly updated when we're coming from something that's about 20 years old to something that's brand new, made from scratch to work for the voter to perfection. It's going to be a big difference on our end. But the voter themselves won't see a lot, but the process will be much better and sleeker. Do you have a thought, Sherry?
Just, I would add I don't have this on.
Oh,
Sorry. I don't know if you can hear me. Just an additional comment about ADA access to the equipment. The new equipment is much better. On election day, the scanner is going to be, which is of course new as well, is more at a height that anyone can easily see, whether you're sitting or standing, where to scan the ballot. And we do have a device that will have a bold screen and bright colors and earphones for those who use them, but that unit, which is now touch screen, and it wasn't before, will print a ballot after that individual votes, and that ballot will be scanned along with every other ballot as opposed to being handled separately. So everybody votes on a paper ballot so that we've got all of our ducks in a row in terms of any audits or recounts.
There's been a lot of concern around the country with the validity of voting and the ability of outside parties to affect the actual ballots or calculations. How would you describe our system in being able to protect us from that?
from counting the ballots? I'm sorry, I didn't really understand.
How do we ensure the veracity of the vote? How do we ensure the correctness of the vote? Do we count the number of ballots? Do we count an electronic number? Do we compare those two?
So on election day, we have saved all of the ballots that were processed by walk-ins and mailed ballots and military and overseas ballots. All of those become scanned on election day. And so then that becomes basically our tabulation. And I'm still not really for sure what you're asking of.
I guess the two big things that we can say to voters, one is we will have a certified paper ballot for every voter who votes in Monroe County, and that will be stored securely so that should something come up, we will be able to go back and refer to all of those paper ballots. And we'll also be able to do a partial audit this year, is that correct? I mean, I went to the election security conference that Common Cause held back in, I think it was early December, and basically our system already met all of the things that they felt should be in order with the exception of the audit, and that is something now that we'll be able to do as well. And so I think we're in pretty good shape compared to many counties.
And comparatively to the audit that would have been expected if we were going to do it, this is going to be much simpler. Again, we need to learn how the process goes. We've been shown, but to actually explain it, I would have a hard time explaining it at this point. But I've seen it, and it's going to be not that difficult, so we'll be doing that for sure.
Mr. President, I'd also like to remind Monroe County voters that our voting equipment is not connected to the internet. We also have a dedicated team of IT personnel on site on election day, also roaming throughout the county, ready to respond to any polling site where there is an issue. We have bipartisan teams that watch, and also every team along the step from the time you present your ID until the time you exit the facility. It is a bipartisan team of people working to get you through that process. Over the years that we've all worked together, we've come to the point where we can get you in and out efficiently. We're going to have even more room to do that this year, and so we are very excited about the opportunity to test this new equipment out. And it's also a wonderful opportunity to thank our voting partners, Hart, InterCivic, I regret that I was not feeling well enough to meet up with Drew this week. I haven't been feeling my best, but he came here and he is our project manager. He's been with us for several elections and he is on his game. Monroe County voters can rest assured that we are well taken care of. Very excited to welcome our newest partner with our electronic poll books, and that is the No Ink business with Mike Miller. And what I love about that, I mean, I think we all have different pieces that we love about it during the demonstration, but being able to scan that barcode on the back of your identification to pull up your ID will make it go much faster. And so we are incredibly fortunate compared to some of the smaller counties in Indiana and having that paper backup. When you see some of the things that you see on the media and in the news, Monroe County is well taken care of, and I'm very proud of that, very excited to get to work with all the people we do. And so, sorry, Mr. President, thank you.
No, that was very cogent. Thank you. Are there any other questions that the board would like to ask of the election supervisor?
No. I want to thank them. They have just been phenomenal. I heard about the semi trucks. I was getting text about everything that was going on, and just a lot of hard work to be accountable for all the equipment that was coming in, plus make sure that we let the Secretary of State know what we were doing with the old equipment. I've got the most incredible team of people anyway, but this is especially a proud moment to watch them shine as they work so hard. I'm so grateful.
Yeah, I did stop by when the truck arrived, and I think there were 32 pallets. It was a jammed 18-wheeler.
Not for the faint of heart.
Not for the faint of heart.
And in 3 days, we had 3 semi-trucks and a very large U-Haul truck that we dealt with. And then at the very end, a 4th semi-truck arrived. It was just kind of a conflict. I think the broker company made a mistake, but it's like, oh, I don't really need you, but we had the 4th one if we needed it. But I didn't know what to do with them, so we sent them back home.
You're going to also talk about the renovation.
Yeah, more stuff you would say.
To the public's reaction to these new machines when we start voting in the primaries this spring.
Lee, did you want to make a public comment?
I did.
I know you signed in, but would you state your name?
Lee Jones, County Commissioner. The commissioners just wanted to make sure that the election board knew that we have set aside the large room and showers for early voting if needed. If you really feel it's not going to be needed, we would like to be informed of that so we can put the room to some other use. But we just wanted you to be sure to know that we have made it available.
Appreciate your generosity. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you and the commissioners for that. We will have to consult with the election central staff to determine whether that's going to be necessary or not, but we will get you a prompt response to that. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, the reconstruction of election central's on the agenda for later in the meeting, so
Under new business.
we'll talk about that at that point.
Yep. Okay. Anything else on the new equipment? No? Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item. The status of the prior assessment due from Steve Wallen. This was an assessment due for a violation.
This was the
A
general
missed deadline.
CFA 4.
Yeah.
He was 4 hours late, which is another good time to remind everybody that the deadline for all of these things is noon, not 4. And for 4 hours late, you do get charged a full day of payment. He was a little concerned that he was going to be fined the full $1,000 because he was late again, and I was able to assuage his fears there and explain that it is a $50 a day fine, including weekends, up to a maximum of $1,000. But he is planning to come in this week and pay that fine. Okay. And hopefully he won't be late again.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
It relates to agenda items on C, the polling sites for 2020. I have not yet written a letter to Dick Ackerman. We can get that done next week. I also spoke to Mark Fraley at Pace about their being able to get somebody with a handicap access to come in and review our plans to move the general election to the Solarium and Alumni Hall, and I'm still waiting for that, so.
All right. I believe under polling sites, we have to finalize the review of the polling sites for 2020. Has the board had an opportunity to review this?
I have also. So I'm guessing just to state, we will still meet in the IMU for both the primary and the general election. In the primary, we will be at the University Club as we have been, in the last elections. However, that's because the new site wouldn't be available for the spring. It also is probably a little bit less of an issue because during the primary, a lot of the university students are already gone since it's after graduation and so forth. So that site was less constrained during the primary. The hope is that we can move it to a much larger venue for the fall election when it would be available, but that site wasn't going to be available anyway in the primary, so we will definitely be at the University Club. The question is, will we move the general down the hall, essentially, as it were?
Okay.
And I guess the other question is the one that we brought up. During the municipal election, we moved Richland 9, which I believe has 11 voters in it, from St. John's to Highland Elementary because St. John's was not going to be used since there was no election in Ellettsville during this year's municipal election. So the question is, should we keep it at Highland or should we move it back to St. John's?
I am going to make a motion that we take the voters back. You become accustomed to your voting place. We really only did it for those extenuating circumstances. And if we're going to use St. John's, I'd like to see them go back to the venue to which they're accustomed.
I'll concur with that.
I'm open either way, I suppose. One of the things we might do is during our year off, we can ask Richland 9 whether or not they want to, which they prefer, but I think for continuity purposes, we should move them back to St. John's for the next election. That's the site that they've been used to voting at for many years. And again, the only reason that we moved them this year was because with no election in Ellettsville, we weren't using St. John's for anything else. But it might be worth asking Richland 9 if they'd rather move their site, and we can do that in 2021 when we don't have an election and don't need to worry about it. And I think it's fairly easy to contact 11 voters as opposed to, say, 20,000 of them. So we have a motion for that, and I will make a second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion is carried. Thank you.
And I believe the rest of the list should be complete, correct, Sherry?
Yes, that is complete as having Richland 9 at St. John's.
Yes.
Okay. Is there any additional old business?
Well, we do actually need to pass this.
I'm sorry.
So there is a resolution on the table for Monroe County Election Board order consolidation of polling places for adjoining precincts. We'll get to you in a minute. The resolution is whereas IC 3-11-8-4.3 permits the county election board by unanimous vote to locate the polls for a precinct at the polls for an adjoining precinct, using the precinct election board of the adjoining precinct to administer the election for both precincts at the same polling place. And whereas the Monroe County Election Board has found it desirable in certain precincts to consolidate the polling places for adjoining precincts pursuant to IC 3-11-8-4.3, it is therefore ordered by unanimous vote of the Monroe County Election Board that the polling place for the precincts be named to be consolidated with the adjoining precincts named in the separate attachment, and that the precincts shall be administered by the same precinct election board. There is an attached list of primary precinct locations, which is fairly the same as it has always been, so I'm not going to read all of those precincts, but it will be in the minutes for people to review. So I will make a motion to pass this resolution.
I will second the motion.
All those in favor?
Wait a minute.
Aye.
Further discussion.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, further discussion.
Yes, you always
Okay.
have to open it up to further discussion. I believe there was
Okay.
some public comment.
Oh. Thank you for your patience.
So you've signed in?
Yes.
Please state your name.
Hi, my name's Ian Nolan. I'm the Director of Voter Registration for the College Democrats at IU. And we came here today because we want to talk to you about getting a universal voter registration in the IMU, vote center in the Indiana Memorial Union. This would just make, a universal vote center would make the IMU it would make it more accessible to voters and help combat voter disenfranchisement. We're students, we eat, sleep, play, and work in Monroe County just like you. We love Monroe County just like you, and we too want a voice in who represents us. And having a voting center in the IMU makes a statement about, not only about democracy, but about priorities and values. You value elections, and so do we. And voting begets more voting. When other people see people voting, it reminds them and even inspires them to go out and vote. And so I think we need to work together, and we want to work together to make a more engaged and active electorate. In this age of ugly partisanship, prioritizing voting access is one value we can all and should get behind. Whether Republican, Libertarian, Independent, or Democrat, we love this country and our constitutional right to vote. And let's all get behind this commonality, and we should designate the IMU as a universal voting center.
Hi everyone, my name is Alessia Majarad and I'm the president of the College Democrats at IU. I'd like to reiterate everything that Ian just said about making the IMU a universal voting center. I'd also like to make one clarification about a comment made earlier. For the first time, I believe, in quite a long time, most students will be on campus for the primary this year. The way that the IU calendar has worked out, we will be here for dead week and finals. I'm not sure about graduation specifically, but I know freshmen through junior should be here. And another thing, too, I noticed I'm only a sophomore, and I voted for the very first time in Monroe County last year. It was very exciting. I lived in one of the Northwest dorms, McNutt, and I know that my voting center was at the Universalist Church, so I had to walk up a pretty busy road to go vote, and I have other friends who are in Collins, which is a dorm that's right across the street from the IMU. He was also districted to go to the Universalist Church. At least to me, and to other voters, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have students who do live on campus or who regularly are on campus or who live quite close to campus by the stadium to go anywhere but campus to vote. And I think that it will make voting a lot easier if it's on campus. You can walk right in, right out. We know that voting is a habitual task. We know that if we can get students to vote from 18 to 22 for the first time, they're more likely to be engaged and vote again and again and again as they get older. And I'm sure we can all agree that this election is going to be very important, and we do want to make that commitment to our students. So if we could have a universal voting center at the IMU, making all voters in Monroe County available to vote there, that would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your compelling presentation.
Thank you. Did you consult with any other groups on campus concerning having a vote center on the campus?
Yeah, so we were hoping to make it bipartisan support, so I was talking to the College Republicans, but unfortunately, I believe
the Monroe County Republican Party chairman disagreed, and so therefore they were not in unison with us on this. So that's how it turned out. So I agree here.
Okay. Do we know how many people are currently voting on campus?
I really can't give you that number now, but we have 4 poll sites that go to IMU, but there's a lot more precincts that are student, and I don't have those numbers. I can get them. My own personal opinion, I love vote centers, but we can't split, we can't do precinct poll locations.
Yeah, it's not going to happen this year. You can't have a vote center in 4 precincts and the rest of the county set up for precinct voting, and that's the way we are now. And it's not possible to change to a vote center at this point. I will say that I think there's more support for a vote center. It was basically just a non-starter for many, many years because of members of the election board who were against it. I think it is something we are exploring again. Ms. Wheeler is actually taking a course now, and I believe one of your projects is to look at moving Monroe County from precinct voting to vote centers, but you can't simply have 2 different systems for different voters. And at the moment, because we're set up as a precinct county, that's the way we're going to have to vote, and we're just going to have to live with that. A couple of other comments that I would make. There are going to be shuttles. I believe PACE is running shuttles again from the IMU to early voting, which is at the Election Central. And so I think those will go from the IMU to Election Central and back. They're going to run some buses. I can't tell you when at this point, but we'll have that information later so that people don't have to walk across the highway to get to voting precincts. But for the moment, I'm afraid you're stuck with what you've got, and so trying for us to figure out ways that will make it easier for people to have access to their precincts on election day, as well as reminding people that if you're downtown, you can pop into Election Central, and we'll let you know what those dates are going to be in just a little while, that there are ways of getting around having to cross 46 on foot.
Can I just ask a follow-up question?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so,
Yeah. We want to be able
I'm sorry,
to make sure the CAPS
needs to
gets
be able
this.
to.
You're good. Just a follow-up question. I understand moving from precinct to county. How would that become possible? Is that something that you guys necessarily deal with, or would that be going to the county council?
Ultimately, it's the decision of the election board to make that decision. But obviously, it's not going to be done in isolation. There will be, we'd have to develop a plan. We would then run past all the stakeholders. So, given that 2021 is a non-election year, that may be a very good time for us to explore making that change if we decide that we want to do that. We have to talk to the parties because ultimately the election board members at least are appointed by party chairs, along with the clerk, who of course is voted in, but is the board secretary by statute. So it's a fairly complicated process, but I think perhaps it's one that's going to be explored again.
I'd like to add a little bit here to give you some hope. So at this point, it does have to be a unanimous decision on the election board, and it is more complicated than them just all saying yes. It's just a lot behind the scenes. I don't want you to be mad at anybody up here, but there has been legislation in process to make it not unanimous, that it would only have to be 2 out of the 3. That can give us more direction for that. And also just personally as election supervisor, I do think it's a great idea. I love the idea of vote centers, and I'm actually working on a capstone project myself through another venue that is all about vote centers. And I'm hoping that even from that and more research and all the planning that it will take, it does take a huge amount of planning, the things that I've seen with other counties. If you don't do the right planning, it doesn't turn out well. But with the planning that takes probably a year to really make it all in line, it's going to be worth that time to make it successful for all voters. So I think it's a good plan.
Yeah, of course, and thank you so much for informing us. We appreciate it. And over the next year, if we can be of any help, 100%, we would love to coordinate, I know, student and community lines and that sort of thing. Communications is important. Thank you again.
One of the things I hope you'll take back to the university is the commitment of the election board to work with PACE. We were very excited at the launch of the polling site at the Indiana Memorial Union, and we consolidated some to be able to offer a central location. I came out, Ms. Carolyn came out, Mr. President, that was prior to your term in office. But we were very excited to partner with you on that. I think it is incredible to have that centrally located. I spent quite a bit of time at Election Central when the shuttles were running and different local organizations were offering pizza to those who stood in line waiting to early vote. And we really have worked hard to make it easy for students to vote between early voting and Election Day. So I'm hopeful that you see that progress. Things do take time, as my colleagues have said, and as we go forward to the possibility of implementing that you are patient with us as we learn, you learn, and so I'm hopeful that you'll take that back, because we definitely are not disenfranchising IMU students. I'm sorry, IU students.
No, of course. Would there be any way to make a motion that would allow the precinct of at least the final 3 dorms on campus to vote at the IMU instead of the Universalist Church, just in terms of anything like that?
Precincts are basically set up by population, and so, no. Again, we can't change that at this point, but that may be, again, some realignments. Again, there's going to be a census next year, so fill out your census forms. At that point, the precincts will be realigned and readjusted, so there may be some changes at that point, but for the moment, again, no, we can't really change the way those are set up.
In addition to that, the census information will be input into consideration whether the vote centers would be a timely decision, where they should be, how big they should be, what should happen to precincts. There may be some situations where it doesn't serve the voter interest to have a vote center. In some of the far-lying parts of the county, it may be difficult for people to reach a vote center, and we don't want anyone to feel disenfranchised. We don't want anyone to feel that it's more difficult for them to vote with a vote center than it was with a precinct. So we have to balance all of this information, and we have to consider the cost. Cost is a big factor. We operate on a budget. We don't control our budget. The budget is determined for us by the county. So we want to make sure that we have all our T's crossed and I's dotted when we go to them with a proposal.
Of course. Well, thank you so much again. This was definitely an informational process for us, and we will take that information. Mark Fraley is awesome, and so is the PACE program. Thank you.
Please give Mark our best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Information, those that are eligible to vote at the IMU is 4,946 voters at the current time of those 4 precincts. So there's a lot more voters that are college students and professors that are not there. So about 5,000, yes.
In the interim, we know parties often, when they're able, can provide transportation to voters who are unable to travel to either early voting or the polls. It makes me wonder whether perhaps IU could or PACE could organize some sort of transportation. The county can't, but you guys have great buses that I ride regularly for other reasons, and something like that in the interim, until we can really kind of work together as a team on this, might be a solution, because walking on that road on Fee Lane from the dorms to some of the other poll sites, I can see could be problematic.
Very well said, Sherry.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other additions to this topic? We have one person, and I did see you sign in.
Hello, I'm Mary Ann Williams. I live in Monroe County. I just wanted to bring up the Big Ten voter registration effort. Is that PACE or is that a separate thing? And I'm
It's
thinking
separate from PACE, but
separate.
PACE helps to organize it on
I was just
campus.
thinking that Dean Lauren Roble might be a good resource on this issue in her effort with the Big Ten registration.
Did we not win that? Did we win?
I attend that meeting for the Big Ten Challenge, and Pace is very involved with it. And the gal that kind of runs the meeting is the head of PACE, or she's second in command of the PACE program. So it kind of all blends together. And they've done a good job. They've been working really hard and have some really good initiatives that are planned for the future for the primary and also the general election.
So making sure you know what's involved there and getting that out to your voters would be helpful as well, so.
A big effort at IU, of course everywhere, but particularly IU as students transition in and out of the community, is getting registered in Monroe County to vote in Monroe County, because nothing hurts us any more than having eager voters from anywhere in the county show up to vote and have them not be registered in Monroe County, because you have to be registered by the deadline to vote a ballot at the poll where they're registered, or at early voting, where it is effectively at early voting for 4 weeks, I think. It's essentially a vote center. Anybody in the county can vote there. So I know there's a big effort not only to get voting going on, but also to get
Registration.
particularly students, but of course anyone who's new to the community, registered. It's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I'll make the comment that I think that there are certain people who register voters or tell people, particularly students, that, you know, you can always vote provisional, is a disservice to the student community, because whether or not you vote provisional, if you are not registered to vote in the precinct that you vote in, statutorily, we must deny that provisional vote. Provisional voting certainly has its important places, particularly you forgot your ID, you can provisionally vote, bring that ID in and prove that that provisional vote will be accepted. But if you are registered to vote in New Jersey, voting in Indiana is not going to help, because that provisional vote is just going to go out the window. So making sure that you're registered where you want to vote, and then helping us to help out, figure out ways to get those voters to the polls is the way to go.
Is there any other old business?
We need to vote.
Okay, so then we don't have
We
to
have to
pass.
vote officially on this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We've had further comment,
never
but then
got
we
to
have to
that.
vote.
Yeah, we got wrapped up in comments. Okay. On the consolidation of polling places for
Adjoining precincts.
for adjoining precincts, do we have a motion?
We have a motion, we have a second, we have discussion, and we
Right.
need to vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the motion is passed. Is this the next, is this new business? I haven't seen this.
I'm not sure those
That's
are
not
actually
on the agenda.
but we can add them.
Okay, we'll add that under new business.
Yeah.
Okay. Under new business, first, violations of the state election law for late filing. This is a responsibility of the election board to ensure that late filings or missing filings are dealt with according to the state law. We had one citizen who had 3 violations, including this year. So
I guess what to elucidate for folks out there, the board adopted a policy a couple of years ago on how to deal with this. There is a statutory mandatory $50 a day fine for filing your CFA-4s late, up to $1,000, at which point then it becomes irrelevant, because $1,000 is the maximum. But the board adopted a policy and has the ability, with a unanimous vote, to either waive a fine or reduce a fine. And so the policy that we have been following for the last several years is that on the first offense, we'll remind you that you need to do it, and we'll waive the fine. On the second offense, we'll give you a sterner warning and shake our fingers at you, but we also will waive the fine. Third offense, you are charged 25% of the actual fine, and after that, you're basically stuck with it for good, for as long as you have that problem. I will say that A, it has to be a unanimous vote of the election board to waive the fine, and B, there may be situations where we feel that the offense is egregious enough that we might not follow that policy, but that's basically what we do for most voters, or most candidates.
Okay. Under 3 violations, there was 1 person this year, and that person was Allison Chopra. I have spoken to her, and she sent me a note that said, "Thank you for your time on the phone yesterday, Mr. Turner. To summarize our conversation so that you may share with the board, I cannot be present at tomorrow's hearing as I must work in Bedford. I admit that I filed my report late and accept any fee or fine that is appropriate." Signed, Allison Chopra.
Mr. President, was there any indication that she is planning to close her account, or I'm sorry, close her?
She did not indicate that.
Okay, so,
Looks like she filed on the due date, but at 3:15 p.m. instead of noon, which makes her 1 day late. That's a $50 imposed fine.
Right. She also had a third party delivering that, and was very apologetic for the fact that the third party delivered it late.
Unfortunately, doesn't make it on time.
Doesn't make it on time. Yeah. So,
We've heard stories of people running down Main Street in Indianapolis trying to get to the clerk's office on time in a snowstorm while 9 months pregnant. But foresight is 2020, and nobody's required to wait until the final day. There is a full week between the end of the filing period and the time that you can, or the last day that you can get that information in. So it's always a good idea to maybe try to get it in Thursday instead of Friday, or Tuesday instead of Wednesday.
Yeah. So could I have a motion from the board that?
I will make a motion that we impose the $50 fine on candidate Allison Chopra for being 1 day late on her CFA-4 annual payment.
I will second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. It is done. Additionally, we have 16 people who will be invited to the next meeting of the election board to report on 1 or 2 violations of filing late or not turning in any report whatsoever. I'll give a copy of this for the minutes of those names. Is it?
And Mr. Chair, I understand there are actually some people who still not yet filed their forms. I will take responsibility for trying to contact the Democratic candidates and find out why that issue has happened. If
Everyone on this list has been contacted. Every one of the 16 has been contacted 3 times from the election supervisor's office.
Would there be any, because this is the time where people are paying attention to candidate filings, would there be any way to enlist the media's help with getting a notice out to candidates who have not filed, not naming anyone, of course, but just saying if there are open campaign accounts.
I guess that's up to the media, but you're welcome to contact them. And we certainly have a member of the media here today, 2 of them actually. So, I mean, certainly that can be mentioned, but I will try to make better direct contact. I would also say, you know, we had a candidate a few years ago who was late, and we had sent her a letter, and she said, well, I only check that post office box once a month. Making sure that as a candidate you have complete and readily accessible contact information on file with the election division is probably a good thing.
The emails that I sent them to are the emails that they gave me when they filled out their CFA-1. So that is their campaign information center in my mind. And I sent all of these people 2 emails beforehand, giving them a heads up. And then the day that they were late, I sent them the 3rd one, still wanting them to kind of stop the bleeding, as, you know, get it in as soon as you can.
And again, some of these candidates might think, oh, well, I closed my account, but they didn't check the right box or something like that. But there's again, it's beholden on them to contact Ms. Wheeler to find out what that situation is and not just blow off our letters.
In an email, I said, if you thought you have finalized it or you don't think that you are responsible to do this, please let me know and I will double check. Because I could make a mistake. I know it's hard to believe, but sometimes I do. But so I'm really wanting to work with them. I don't want anybody to get a fine, so let me know if I have wrong information and I will correct it. But 10 of those did not respond to me at all of the 3 emails.
And we have, as she said, done our best to both notify them that that was due. This is a year that a lot of people get caught out because it's a municipal election. So you're not up for election, you're not taking in money, you're not even thinking about your candidacy. But if you have an open campaign finance account, you're still responsible for filing an annual report. And obviously, we caught out a lot of people this year.
And we will give our most vigorous invitations to those people to attend the next election board meeting, where we will review each case. All right. Preparations for the 2020 primary elections. Could we have a report, Ms. Wheeler, on the reconstruction of Election Central?
Well, I have to say this has probably been the most exciting week that I have ever worked as election supervisor, from all the semis and the U-Hauls, and then now we have in the middle of all this a renovation of Election Central. And it probably started, it'll probably take about the 3 weeks of what they said. Today it should be finished. We have taken down walls, we've expanded the ballot room. We have way big open space that we'll be able to use for the voters. It's very impressive. We have all new carpeting that was finished yesterday. Today, the only thing that was left is doing some of the trim work and a few just other minimal things that Weddle Brothers said they will be finished today by today's end. And it is really, really going to be so beneficial. It looks great. It's allowing us to pretty much double our capacity of having the walk-in voters come in. And there's just certain things that hold us up more than others. The e-poll books stations go pretty quickly, but then it takes people time to vote, and it takes time for them to get checked out. And those areas have doubled in their capacity. You are certainly welcome to come down, and I am glad to show off how it looks. It still is a little bit messy. The renovation part, will be complete today. We don't have our desks back. We don't have the shelves up on the walls and things in the shelves, and the organization is not done. It's not cleaned. Anytime you do renovation, you get a lot of dust and a lot of mess. But the people that worked with us, this Bounds and the Carpet Place and Weddle Brothers did an amazing job. We got a lot of support from the clerk's office in physically moving things around, and also from the county maintenance and other areas. It's been incredible. It's been a lot of work, but I'll tell you, people have really come alongside to help, and that's been really amazing and really fun to see happen. This is a community effort. It might be my office, but there was a lot of people who were very interested and willing to help. So come and visit us. If not now, come and vote early. We'll be there in April, and we'll have, people have said, are you going to have this done by March? It's like, we're going to have it done this week, you know, but it might take us next week to get completely settled in, but it's been good.
I guess for the benefit of the voters, from what I've discussed and when I did the tour with you, so the voter registration office and the election supervisor's office will be in the same location they've been. You'll still come in those doors, but when you come in to vote this year, we'll actually come in to, are we going to still come in through that door? Okay.
We had one plan, and that's gotten changed. So you're going to walk in the same door, and you're going to walk out the same door that you did before, so it's really not going to change anything other than you'll come in and you'll go, oh, this is a different place. It's going to look good.
Not as
Yeah, I
great.
haven't been in since they knocked down the last of the walls, so I will be in to take a look next week.
I'd just like to say a word that we owe a great debt of gratitude to Nicole Brown, our county clerk, and her staff for the effort they put in to get the funds to be able to do this enlargement. It wouldn't have happened without you. Thank you.
And thanks also to the county commissioners.
Yes.
Helped
Thanks
to
to
make
all
this
the,
happen.
thanks to the people who actually voted the money. Yes.
Thank you all. It's so well worth it.
And thank you. Should we put up a please excuse our mess sign?
Yeah, yeah.
With the enlargement of Election Central, do you feel that we should continue to keep available space at showers, or can we say at this point that we don't feel that space is going to be needed? Do we still need to consider that?
My opinion is that we will not need a satellite. I would be very surprised if we did, but it has been brought to my attention that that room, if it is available, would be a great place for us to have some of the food services that we need on election day, just a temporary time, place, because we could easily have 60 people at Election Central counting, opening the ballots, and everything that goes with that. And if we can use that room to have those people eat their lunch, that would be amazing, because even though we have a lot of space, it's all going to be used, and then where do you have people eat? So that would be great, but for a satellite, I would say no. I think we can more than handle what we're going to have coming down the pike. And if I'm wrong, we'll find out, I think, very quickly. But with our doubling the space, we did pretty well. We were maxed out in 18, totally maxed out. But doubling this, I think we can do it.
How many days would you need the satellite space?
We'll keep that issue
Done it
open
for 2 weeks.
for a little longer, so we can take it under advisement as we see how everything gets situated once the construction's finished.
And in 2018, we had up to 1,600 people come through on a day, in one day, which, if you look at the space that we had, that's a lot of people, but it ran like clockwork. We didn't have that every day because we didn't have that many voters. So, to doubling our space, can we really do 3,000? I don't know. There's a lot more involved than just doubling your numbers, but I know we can handle a lot more. And of course, we appreciate when people come in earlier in the month, not waiting till the last week, but everyone has their choice of when they come in. If you come in later, of course, you're going to be more likely to have a line. But even when we had lines, we were getting through very quickly, I think, 20 to 30 minutes when it was a long line. So, and we're going to have more e-poll books and just more of everything. So I think, again, I just see it as it should be a very positive experience for the voters. A lot unknown.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Could you also speak to the recruitment of volunteers, you or the clerk's office?
Yes, we have changed our recruiting a little bit this year. We started already in January. We usually start about 6 weeks from Election Day. And so I've had my office take that over temporarily. And so they've started and they've gotten some recruitments already for Election Day workers. I will need about 350, 360 poll workers, which is a lot. More than half are Democrats because Democrats have the inspectors, the Republicans don't. So it's still a lot of people. And so as my office has time, they're making calls to people who have worked or names we get a hold of. We've sent letters out to churches asking for their support because we're going to need a lot of people, as you can see. We're also sending out a letter to some community clubs. They'll go out this week, if not tomorrow, perhaps Monday, asking for them to give us some help or names, or because you do get paid, and it's a pretty good. I mean, you're thinking you're volunteering, and you're doing a civic thing, and you're going to get paid, plus your training, plus your food. And it's like a very good experience. It helps. I think everybody should be able to do it at least once. And once you do it once, you want to do it again. Mm-hmm. So we are starting. And then once we get closer, maybe that 6 weeks out from Election Day, we will get recruiters, a Democratic recruiter and a Republican recruiter. And they will finish that out depending on how many get recruited ahead of time. That depends on how long of a time they will have, and then they'll do the maintenance, because even once you have them all filled, it's still not an easy job because people have things that happen, like breaking their ankle and just things happen and they can't work, and we need replacements for that. So anybody that is thinking about they want to work, and also I love the idea, and we use it, that we have 16 and 17-year-olds that can work, high school kids. They have to have good grades, 3.5 average or above, or 3.0, I'm sorry. Permission from their parents and permission from the school. And they make wonderful workers. They do a great job.
We got lots of compliments about our 16 and 17-year-old workers, and one time when we all went to the high school to talk to students, I tried to encourage them, if their parents won't buy them a particular pair of sneakers or whatever that they want, come work for me. About a month later, you'll have that check in your hand. You can get that pair of shoes yourself.
Absolutely. And we've been working with the high schools also, and some teachers in each of the high
that's,
schools.
yeah, that's a point I wanted to bring up. Are these completely volunteer positions, or are some of them paid positions?
Everyone is paid.
Everyone is paid?
Everyone's paid.
Okay. I think that's an important point to make when we're asking for volunteers.
Yes. They have different prices, but it's kind of the $135 for the day, $25 for food, and then depending, $10 to $25 for training, depending on your position. And so it adds up nicely. Of course, then you have to bring your own food. The food is not provided, but yeah. You can $25. Most people aren't going to eat $25 worth of food when you bring your own. Bring your PBJ.
I always enjoyed working the polls when I was, before I became an election board officer. To me, the fun thing is to meet with the voters and to help them vote. And people are really very appreciative of that. It is a long day, but I think it's a very rewarding one as well.
And if you are not capable or do not want to work the full day, we do take half days. We prefer not because it just works better, but it is a choice.
Okay.
Do we have the leads established for early voting yet, or we're still working on that?
For hours?
No, the leads for early voting.
Yes.
Will they be the same as last year, or?
Kind of, sort of. So the front, do you want the names?
Might as well.
Okay, so the front leads is for the Democratic Party, it's Bob Austin and Karen Boswell. And the Republicans, it will be Peggy Roberts. In the back, that's where we don't have it quite settled. We're going to, for the military and overseas, it will be Pat Combs for the Democratic Party and Brant Downey for the Republican Party. Then the far back, the military, male section, the Republican will be Ron Sumanek. I don't know how to say his last name. Do you know how to say it? Sumanek. Sorry, Ron, if I said it wrong. Love the guy, but I don't know how to say his last name real well. And then the Democratic Party, we are still working on that. I don't have that final person. So some of it switched up in the back a little bit. And then Laramie Wilson was the lead back there, but we moved her to the front. She's a voter reg worker. So she's my staff. She's doing a great job. I am very pleased with what she's doing. And so she's left a void in the back. So that's what we're working on that one.
A big thank you to all of our friends who are returning to work for us as leads. We're very grateful.
It's very helpful too, because we have seasoned workers that know their jobs and know how to deal with what goes on.
And this looks like it could be a big year for voting, so we need experienced people and we need new people to learn the skills for the oncoming elections as well.
And we have great people that can teach you. So if you're brand new, don't worry about it. We've got a great trainer right here. Sherry will do that, and she helps people.
Hopefully, everyone will have a chance to use the equipment and get some comfort level with them. So training is actually going to be required. So, there's probably a 3-week period you can come in and play on your own time if needed. Yeah, training is definitely provided for everyone, especially with the new equipment.
Yes.
Is there anything additional that you would like to say about preparations for the primary voting?
I think right now I don't have anything else. Things are moving along pretty quickly, although we're pretty early on a lot of things, so that's good. But I don't think we can be too early on any of this for this election.
We have one item that the board needs to vote on in regard to the primary elections, and that is the days and hours for the 2020 primary election voting, early voting. I believe it's over on the table. So anyone who would like to see what those hours are can review that starting on April 7th and going up through May 4th at 12 p.m., which is the day before the official primary day. If I could ask for any comments from,
I think for the viewing public, if you would want to read the hours for those who can't be at today's meeting.
absolutely. If April 7th through April 9th will be open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. 13th through the 17th of April will be open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. April 20th through April 24th will be open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. April 25th will be open 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Well, no, that's a Saturday.
Yep. April 27th through May 1st will be open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. May 2nd, which would be a Saturday, will be open 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then the Monday before primary day, we will be open, that's May 4th, we'll be open 8 a.m. to noon. All right.
Thank you. And then, of course, on Election Day, you go to your regular polling site. I found during the municipal, both the primary and the general, that we had quite a few people come to Election Central on Election Day because we made early voting so accessible at Election Central. They just thought they would vote there on Election Day. But on Election Day, you do actually go to your polling site. But I think these are in line with what we've done over the past few elections, and plenty of hours to get out there and cast your early ballot, and I'm hoping that you will. That, I think, goes a long way toward us getting done what we have to do on Election Day to get those returns to you as quickly as possible. Thank you.
There is a Good Friday in there, and we are closed. You read it correctly, but the Good Friday, we do not vote. We're not open.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I will make the motion that we accept the hours for 2020 primary early voting.
I will second that motion.
Any discussion?
No discussion.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion is passed.
We should also do the sheriff's and clerks, because
Sheriff's,
read that one.
that's not the one, that's it.
We have one more motion that deals with early and primary voting and general election, and that is the sheriff's and clerks not required resolution. The Monroe County Election Board resolves under section IC 3-6-6-38 that sheriffs and clerks will not be required in all precincts in Monroe County for the 2020 and primary and general election. We do have sheriffs in some locations that are busy and need help. We have other locations which tend to historically have been a little less. We might not hire a sheriff there because those duties could be taken care of by a judge or a clerk. And that's basically the premise behind this resolution, is that we don't need a sheriff in every precinct, and in some cases, we might use judges as clerks or whatever, depending on what happens or somebody's ill.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I guess we'll make the motion that we accept this resolution.
Okay.
And I will second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion is carried. Ms. Wheeler, are there any preparations for the fall 2020 election that are exceptional to the preparation we have to do for the spring primary? Are there any issues outstanding for the fall election that we haven't already discussed?
I would say not at this point.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you. Then I'll ask for any other old or any other new business.
I have no further new business.
I have none at the time. I guess just to remind everybody, however, if you are intending to run as a candidate, you must file by this coming Friday at noon by the clock in the election office. And so there may still be a few additional filings, and just get it in on time if you want to run, because you can't run if you don't file.
I'd like to ask the audience if you have any further comments or questions that you'd like to bring forward in front of the election board. No? Okay. Our next election board meeting will be March 5th, 2020. Is there anything else from the board itself?
I have nothing today.
Then can I have a motion?
I will make a motion to adjourn this month's meeting.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.